In today's episode, the equipment operator thought he was as qualified as me to make repairs. Hello, you've reached tech support. How? Oh no. Let's chat about your repair, shall we? Please don't do that. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. The equipment operator thought he was as qualified as me to make repairs. I work in a small company where we make these widgets. The widgets are coated in a substance that must be cured by heat. Ordinarily, this substance is applied by soaking the parts in an oven to heat them, dipping the parts in the coating, then soaking the parts in an oven one more time to cure the coating. Instead, we heat the parts by running an electric current through them. We use modified welders to do this. Much of the equipment was built or modified by me, based on designs by the previous employee. I would like to think I have improved upon his designs. For example, where he used wire wrapping to assemble a circuit board, I used solder. Wire wrapping was a method for prototyping circuit boards back in the day, but isn't used much anymore, and it wasn't meant to be a permanent solution as the wire-wrapped connections can oxidize over time and cause intermittent faults. I don't actually work in the coating room where the widgets get dipped in the coating and then cured. I maintain the equipment, the boxes of electronics that interface between the computers and the rest of the equipment, the mechanisms that dip the parts, and the welders that heat the parts. The operator of the coating room is expected, with training and experience, to understand what times to enter into the computer that operates the mechanisms that dip and heat the parts. On to the story. The gentleman that is the operator in our coating room has come to believe he knows at least as much as I do about how the equipment functions. He has become quite knowledgeable about what times to enter into the computer as the operations progress throughout the day. I do not have such knowledge, as when I'm not doing repairs in the coating room, I have my own equipment to run and maintain. I troubleshoot problems all over the company, and I'm also the gopher for our IT contractor. When the coating room operator has a problem with the equipment, he calls me, I look it over, I suggest how to troubleshoot and fix it, and I make the repair. Recently, he's complained that one of the welders that applies the current to heat the parts as they are being dipped is producing unsatisfactory results. I advised him that, when convenient for him, we should troubleshoot the issue by swapping the welder with one of the other three. There are 2 workstations, each workstation has 2 welders, one each for heating the parts as they are dipped and heating the parts a second time as the coating is cured. I said that the equipment had been designed such that the welders could be swapped easily. That is, once you unplug a welder from the electrical outlet, you only need to unplug a single control cable from the back of the welder before you could move it to the other workstation. I had hoped to confirm that the problem either followed the welder or did not. This would either isolate the problem to the welder or lead us to something else, such as the dipping mechanism or the system that circulates the substance that is used to coat the parts. Remember how I said the operator has come to believe he knows at least as much as I do about how the equipment functions because he has become quite knowledgeable about what times to enter into the computer as the operations progress throughout the day. Without my knowledge or consent, he brought in some tools from home and began disassembling 2 of the welders. He could have just unplugged both power and control cables from the welders prior to swapping them, but he disassembled them. Breaking control cables. Ruining one of the solenoids that control when the current flows. Leaving the high current connections for the solenoids on both welders loose. I didn't learn what was happening until hours later, after he was forced to admit defeat. He left one welder where the solenoid was unable to turn the welder on. He left the other welder where the solenoid was unable to turn the welder off, an unbelievably hazardous situation. I actually saw sparks jumping across a connection that was not supposed to have current flowing through it at the time. I've managed to repair one of the welders, returning one of the 2 workstations to service. It's going to be a few days before I can repair the other welder. The solenoid that was unable to turn its welder off has a cracked case and a missing terminal for one of the 2 control wires. The operator just shoved the remains of the lug at the end of the wire against the remains of the terminal, so I've had to order a replacement solenoid. And I still have to troubleshoot the operator's original complaint after I'm finished repairing the second welder. Hello, you've reached tech support. How? Oh no. I work in a tech support department in a big call center for a phone/internet/TV company. I get a call last week, seems fairly normal. Customer is pretty upset because our shittiest sales department, don't get me started on them, messed up the order, and it got cancelled and customer was supposed to get the modem today. He sounds like he is 40 plus years old. He starts up with asking for a manager. I try to calm him down, and I get to that order, and then he starts. My wife of 20 years old was cheating on me. She left me and threw away all of my stuff, told me to move out. She took everything away from me. Everything, the kids too. Kids are visiting me today, and they need the Wi-Fi for homework. And listen, at this point I did feel bad. I would feel even worse if he asshole wasn't cursing me out, and I forgot to mention, he was really drunk. I have a feeling not having the modem today for the kids is not as bad as being dead drunk on that day. Anyway, I feel really bad about all of this, so I get to sending the modem out again. I go into ordering, I try to resend equipment. During all this my CX seemed to mellow down, got a little quiet, but I heard some scary gurgling noises here and there. Ignoring this, I finish the order. The gurgling and what seems like snoring get really loud. I tell the customer we're finished and that unfortunately we can't get the modem there today. No response. I am pretty scared at this point. I don't really want him to respond. Drunk people freak me out so much, even on the phone, for reasons I won't disclose. But I have to do my job, so I try to hello sir, hello are you there him for a couple minutes with intervals of me just being silent and texting my team leader to ask him what to do. I finally give up. This man is 100% asleep. I hang up. I did finish the order for him, even though I shouldn't do it without his verbal approval, but I knew he does need the modem in the end, and at least he will get a text message confirming the order. There is no added cost for resending that. Farewell drunk sad man, hope your kids won't have to stay at your place while you are in this state of being. Let's chat about your repair, shall we? One of the banes of every TV repairman's existence is the amateur. There was a survey done while I was in the business that stated that TV repairmen were the second least trusted professionals, just ahead of used car salesmen, and I can understand why. In any business that requires specialized knowledge, there are always those jerks that use their knowledge to cheat people. My boss didn't stand for that, however, believing, correctly, that it would be far more profitable to simply make sure your customers knew they could trust you. Still, the stigma led many to try to fix their sets themselves, or call the expert friend who would come over, happy to share his vast knowledge to the wonderment of all. Usually in the very early days, that vast knowledge consisted of taking tubes to the local drugstore to the U-Test M tube tester, tubes sold here, in an attempt to find the bad one. What they didn't know was that the tester in the drugstore was a bit schizophrenic. If it told you the tube was bad, it was bad, but if it told you the tube was good, well, it might be lying to you. With the advent of solid-state electronics and transistorized circuits, a lot of this fell by the wayside, but there was always the guy who thought they could save some money by trying to fix it themselves. Doing so could be compared to do-it-yourself dentistry. You might get lucky, but more than likely you're not going to like the results. There was, however, one part that even the most unknowledgeable amateur always felt sure they could replace with impunity: a fuse. Now, let's start with one important concept: fuses generally don't go bad. The number of times I've heard it's a bad fuse from the uninitiated could, if transformed to dimes, buy me an unending supply of overpriced coffee. When any other part stops working, it might be bad. When a fuse blows, it's not going bad, it's working as designed, protecting the circuit behind it from an overvoltage/current situation that would ruin far more expensive circuitry and render the set well and truly dead. You can replace a fuse with the exact replacement maybe once, but if it still blows, you need to get your equipment to a pro. Trying too many times can result in acrid smells accompanied by smoke and cracking sounds. This is considered a bad thing. Still, there is always that one guy who is sure he knows better. Which brings us to the guy who brought in a small portable color TV. He was really annoying and unreasonable, demanding, talking down to me and my colleagues, expecting special treatment and super quick turnaround, just being an entitled jerk. It was good to watch him walk out the door. I put it on my section of the bench and began taking the back off. The set was one of the well and truly dead, and when I opened it up I found that the entire power supply and horizontal outputs section were burnt to a crisp. Normally in this model there would be a fuse to protect all of this, but upon looking I found that the user had attempted his own fix by wrapping the fuse in tinfoil. With no fuse to protect them, this caused the set to do its best imitation of an Independence Day barbecue, complete with the aforementioned smoke and acrid smell. The protected circuits were very literally toast. As I have insinuated thus far, the first commandment of retail electronics is thou shalt have no other technicians before me, and for this very reason. It was not going to be cheap to put his set back together. He was not happy with the price, and made a number of disparaging comments over the phone when we called in his estimate, but he really had no choice and agreed to the repair. Finally the day came for him to pick it up, and I happened to be on the counter when he came in. He was loudly complaining about the price just to replace a few parts, the whole time I was retrieving his set. By the time I set it on the counter my patience was gone. I had resurrected his TV from the dead, and he was complaining. My mischievous side came out. I leaned over the counter and started speaking, conspiratorially, "Hey, I noticed you had someone else work on it before we got it. I would be very careful and not go to that guy again. Do you know what he did? He wrapped a fuse in tinfoil. That's what caused the damage." Can you imagine anyone being that stupid? I can't imagine what he was thinking. I was laying it on heavy, pretty much calling him every word for foolish in the book, and all he could do was stand there, listen and nod. There was no way he was going to fess up and admit that he was the guy with the tinfoil. I finished my comments with a smile. He was silent as he quickly paid and left the shop as fast as he could. It was always rare when I could feel like I'd managed to get a little of my own back, and I have to admit that it was the high point of my week. Please don't do that. So we had some onboardings yesterday. Girl came in, maybe mid-20s, I handed her her new notebook, explained the ticket system, and welcomed her. We just had to change her password from the default one. She asks me, "Could you hand me a piece of paper I can write my password done?" I stand there for a moment, trying to comprehend that. Then I snap out of it. Me, well, please do not do that. Her, but I will forget it otherwise. Me, you can have it reset in that case. Her, no, it's okay, I can remember it. And that was it, or so I thought. Within the hour I got a ticket to reset the password. Turns out she couldn't actually remember.